Well, hello again there, YouTube family and friends, subscribers, visitors alike. Welcome back. I'm sure you can appreciate that this is a continuation from last week. We went into some territories that were not at the top of my mind, but as I spoke, it sort of just came up, and I made the decision just to give you some raw details about how some of these things affected my life. But just before we continue with that, let's just remind ourselves that it's another week where we need to give God thanks for whatever we've had to navigate in the last several days, weeks, months. Let's just continue to give God thanks for who He is and what He has done for us. Yes, and like I said in the last video, share the videos, leave a comment, and let's see if we can build community and family on this channel. So yes, like I was saying, last week I ended up spending quite a bit of time on unforgiveness because it's so important, and in so doing I gave some practical examples how unforgiveness affected my life, and I gave you the example of how all of this escalated into what was a heart condition because it no longer exists, because it wasn't a physical matter, it was a spiritual matter. Once I dealt with it in the spirit, it went. So you see how things work, in the sense that had I gone back to the doctor now and said, I had addressed the matter rightly, legally, correctly, spiritually, then I would have been on medication, who's to tell, for the rest of my life. And if you look at it, when you start taking one medication for certain things, you start having some other issues, and so you can't figure out what is going on with you. But I assure you, a lot of it, not all, because I said this at the outset, and I hope no one, I can't stop anybody from saying what they want to say. This is social media. I have said it, that not all sicknesses have a root in a spiritual matter. Some of it is just common sense issues, right? We don't eat properly, for example. We don't exercise on certain things, things like that. So not everything is a spiritual matter. But let me give you an example of how you know when it's a spiritual matter. There's no explanation for it. You can't explain it, okay? It doesn't respond to treatment. So the doctors, I'm not saying that they're demigods. They're trained and they understand the body and that sort of thing, and their training should give them some amount of knowledge and response to our situation. So if you go into the doctor for years and years for a situation, more than likely it is not a physical matter. Yes, it's not a physical matter, it's a spiritual matter. So then we were on the point of how then does Satan have access to us, right? And I looked at disobedience, things in the bloodline, rebellion, and we got to unforgiveness. Yes, not going back through those because that was quite a lengthy video, not as long as I could go, but it was quite lengthy. And then the last one I wanted to discuss briefly, very briefly, is dishonor. Some of us are very dishonorable people. We don't know how to respect and to honor people who are set over us. And let me just start with the fundamental, our parents. And that was one of my issues as well, but I'm not going to talk my business today. There is something connected, there's a promise connected to honoring our parents. It says, so that our days may be long on the earth. And I've been thinking about this for a very long time. I don't have the answer. I'm not proposing that I'm going to give you the answer this morning. But I found it a little interesting. I'm a sports enthusiast, and I love Michael Jordan. I think if you're willing to learn, there are a lot of things, a lot of principles that he has used to be able to be as successful as he is today that we can also learn. And I look at Michael Jordan and I look at Kobe Bryant. Right, both exceptional players, both at the top of their games at some point in their careers. And here it is, Kobe Bryant just went on a flight and accidentally died, and he took his daughter another generation with him. And it bothers me because a lot of these sports people, they're on a plane 24/7, and there are so many factors about this accident that were inexplicable, right? I don't know if it's something that you'd have followed. There are some things that people just couldn't understand about it. But one of the things that bothered me is how much Michael Jordan reveres his parents, well, his mother now because his dad passed, how much he honors them in everything. When you look at Kobe Bryant, he had so many issues with his parents at one point. He did not speak to his parents. Okay, he did not speak to I know his father, I don't know if his mother as well, but I know he did not speak to his father for many, many years. I understand he was quite disrespectful and very dishonorable. So I'm just wondering if there's a connection there. And when I look at even LeBron James, despite what he has gone through with his mother, he's been able to love her, cherish her. And I wonder sometimes if some of the things when we look at early deaths, to what extent these are connected with how we dishonor our parents. So I'm just putting it out there. I don't have the answer, but it's something that kind of nagged me to see the Bible come alive, to say, honor your mother and your father so that your days can be long on the earth. So yeah, just something that I have been wondering about. All right, so let's go into what I would consider our substantive discussion. Last week I just meant to outline these things, and an outline became a whole subtitle, a whole title. So Satan has access to us, right, by two ways. Okay, by one way: permission. He must get permission. Okay, he must get permission. If we are children of God, he needs permission because we're covered under the blood, right? So in 1 Peter 5 and 8, we are told to be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, the adversary is a role, adversarial role, meaning accusing you, is like or as a roaring lion, walking about seeking whom he may devour. Now, the word may is very clear. There's a difference between may and can. Can means ability to do something. So I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Meaning I have the ability to do whatever God has assigned me to do. May is permission. Can you be given the right to do certain things? Okay, so do you have permission to enter somebody's premises? So you can enter the premises because you have the ability to walk on their premises, but do you have the permission to do that? So that's the difference between can and may, right? May speaks to your permission. So the enemy can only do certain things to us if he has permission from two sources. He has to have permission from God, or he has permission from us. I explained already how he has access to us, which is essentially permission, unforgiveness, disobedience, all of those that I discussed already. Okay, that's giving him permission to come in anger, bitterness, hatred. That is opening up ourselves to satanic kingdom, to the satanic kingdom. Okay, so it's the same thing, permission. Now there is a scripture that I quite like just to demonstrate this. So St. Luke 22 and verse 31 and 32, right? This is speaking to Simon Peter, verse 31 and 32. It says, so just to give you a context, this is the Last Supper, and Jesus is sitting down and having a meal with his disciples, right? This is the feast, I think, of the Passover lamb there, right? So he's now speaking. I think he spoke about, he spoke about someone who would come and betray him. We know it's brother Judas right there. But here now he singles out Peter. And you should know this, that when Jesus repeats something, it's because of the importance and he wants to get the attention of that person or that situation. So he says in verse 31, Simon, Simon. So he calls him twice. Like, wake up, Simon, wake up. Satan has asked, so the evidence is there, to sift all of you as wheat. Everybody. But I have prayed for you. So he's speaking individually, but he's also speaking collectively, because he says all of you. But he's speaking directly to Simon, because Simon, we're going to see, some things that Simon was able to accomplish, right? Or the perspective of Simon. Why Simon Peter? Because Simon Peter had some issues, This was a guy who took a sword and cut off a man's ears. It's in the same chapter that Jesus rebukes Simon to say, "Get thee behind me, Satan." Right? Simon who said, "Oh, I'll go with you all the way." And Jesus said, you. Before the cock crows 3 times, you will deny me. I said, no, not me, Jesus. Well, we see it's the same chapter. Read it for yourself. Right? So he said, "Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift all of you as wheat. But I have prayed for you, Simon, that your faith may not fail. Watch this. And when you are converted, now strengthen your brethren." So Simon is, first of all, it tells us that Satan is coming after you, right? And he has to ask permission. Right? But it bothers me a little bit. Well, not bother, but I'm a little bit intrigued as to why Jesus would have said to him, "And when you are converted," or some translations say, "when you are turned back to your original position." That means even though Simon Peter is sitting at the table with Jesus is still saying, "You're not even converted." This thing is interesting. He said, "When you are converted, okay, then you strengthen your brethren." But it becomes even a little bit more interesting to me, because why didn't Jesus say, "Well, no, you can't have him"? Jesus could have easily well say, "Well, Simon Peter, Simon, Satan is asked to sift you as wheat," but I've told him no. The reason Jesus allows this is because Simon Peter is prepared. He is prepared. He is not aware of how prepared he is, but he's certainly prepared. And so, my friends, I want to encourage you. A lot of times when we go through things and it feels so unfair and it feels like, why is the devil taunting me in these areas? It's because God has already prepared you for this season of your life, for this trying, for this trial, for this temptation. He's already prepared you because he knows the end from the beginning. He sees you, whatever you do, wherever you go, he sees. So he knows what you can handle. Okay, so that's one. But secondly, why would Satan ask, my English off today, why would Satan ask for Simon Peter? Because of who he is and what he was about to accomplish. Now, first of all, you will remember in the book of Acts that Simon was very instrumental, right, in the church. Yes, in the church of Jesus Christ. Simon played an instrumental role. Despite what he had gone through, despite all the errors that he had made, Simon Peter had a great work to do. So again, it's another encouragement that if you're going through certain things, yes, it's because the devil wants to distract you from going to the great thing that God has for you. But also, it's based on who Simon Peter was. Right? Yes, he had a lot of flaws and things, but Simon Peter had an understanding of who Jesus was. And that's really what the devil is after. He's after your understanding. Remember I said it in the last video? He's after your understanding. He's after not the information that you have. He's after your understanding. A deep understanding. What's going on with this life? A deep understanding of who you are. Okay, and your understanding of who God is. So let's look at St. Matthew chapter 16 and verse 13 to 20. 16, 13 to 20. So here they had a little argument about who Jesus was saying, well, who am I? Verse 13. When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" They replied, so he's asking his disciples, They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." These are his disciples that he's asking, "Who am I?" They still don't know. They still don't understand the depth of who they are sitting in the midst of, the stature of the man Jesus that they are dealing with at this point. Okay, so Um, when he gets to Simon, he says, "What about you?" He asks, "Who do you say I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And then Jesus said, "Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood did not reveal it unto you, but my Father which is in heaven. Yes, yes. And I say also unto you that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it." So what was it that Simon had? Excuse me, people, I think I have some lights in here, and somehow I hope it's not affecting things too much. He said, this revelation. That's what I've been telling you, not information. They're hanging out with Jesus. They're seeing Jesus, heal lepers, thank you, Lord. Heal the lepers, the sick, the whoever it is, right? But it's based on the revelation. That's what we need. Not information, revelation of who God is, that Simon Peter is told that on this rock I will build my church. What? On the revelation, on the understanding. See, that's the thing. In a lot of our worship spaces, we are devoid of revelation. We are going along with tradition, we are going along with information, but it says it's based on this revelation of who God is, that he will build the church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And there is a little 1, 2, 3. So Simon, you know who I am. Then Jesus speaks to him, and then he says, "And I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatsoever you shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever you shall loose on earth shall be loosed in the heaven." So everybody are bind and loosed, but we don't even get the sequence. It's on the revelation of who Jesus Christ is. Because if we don't understand who Jesus Christ is, there is no proper binding and loosing. It's just words. It's just, yes. Okay, it's based on a revelation. Yes? So that's one of the reasons where Simon Peter was attacked, and it's one of the reasons why God will give Satan permission to come and test you, right? Because you have the seeds of greatness in you, you're going on to bigger things, and you have a revelation of who God is. See, devil doesn't play with all them people out there who just go into church and lick them tambourine and just move on. He is gonna mess with people who are growing in their faith, who have an understanding and a revelation of who they are in Christ, who have an understanding and a revelation of who God is, so they can tap into some secret things here in the earth. Those are the people. So let's join the club, yeah, because I'm sure a lot of you on this platform, you're going through it, and so you'll understand why that is so. Now, it would be remiss of me to discuss a topic like this without discussing what I consider, I could be very wrong, what I consider to be the main subject of discussion, the main character to be discussed when we are looking at Satan attacking an individual. Let me hear you say it. We're talking no other than the man called Job. So we're gonna go to Job, right? Job 1. So it's long, and I'm gonna go through several aspects of it, but obviously I'm gonna just put it together because we can't read all of this. So, in the land of Uz, there lived a man, and the Bible says that he was blameless and upright. He feared God and he shunned evil. Alright, now the long and short of it is that God is just bragging on Job now, So it says that, verse 6, one day the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with him. You see that? Say the angels came and Satan came, right? Okay, so don't think that because you're worshiping and because you're praising, the devil is not going to present himself. Oh yes, he's there. And the Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" Satan said, from roaming throughout the earth, going back and forth on it. And God said, well, I have a guy. Have you considered my servant Job? And Satan said, don't even play that with me, okay? You know that the only reason Job is still serving you is because you have a hedge of protection around him, and because you just bless him with all these things, right? But Satan said, trust me, you take these things away from him and watch if he doesn't curse you to the face. And God said, okay, No problem. He said, you can do all these things, but only do not lay a finger on him. That means don't touch his body. And Satan say, that will do. Yeah, I'll take it. So a lot of us know the story. Job lost everything. Job lost his children. As a matter of fact, let me just browse through some of it for you. It says that his daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house, and while they were doing that, a messenger came and said the ox were plowing and the asses feeding beside it, and something fell upon them and took them away. They just dead. All the children died. He lost all his property, lost everything. Now, the part that we like is, and God restored unto him double for his trouble, double portion. We love quoting double trouble. Well, there's a process, and I'm going to show you how we got there. Okay? And then I think it's in chapter 2. I think chapter 2, verse 9, his wife said, well, what's wrong with you? You behave like you are more holy than anybody else. Just curse God and die. Okay? Because God is not even listening to you. God is not paying attention to what's going on. So just curse God and die. And Job said, you speak like a foolish woman. Okay, you sound stupid. Okay, because I know that my Redeemer lives. Remember all of that Job said? Right? And then we will go through all these chapters. Right? And it speaks about even his friends. I think in chapter 7, Eliphaz, the Temanites, just read it for yourself, chapter 8, right? They're just saying things about Job, saying, if you're so holy and if you're so blameless, where's God? And so they were blaming him about, maybe you're not so blameless after all. Maybe you're a man full of sin. Maybe you did some things in your life, and that's why this is happening to you. Okay? But throughout the process, and this is what I want us to pay attention to. Let's go to chapter 8. Chapter 8. It says, how long will you say such things? Your words are blustering wind. Your words, does God pervert justice? Does the Almighty pervert what is right? So they're questioning the character of God now. Say, isn't God a holy God? Isn't God supposed to treat the people of God fairly? And he says, but if you seek God earnestly and plead with the Almighty, if you are pure and upright, even now he will rouse himself on your behalf and restore to you your prosperous state. You have those people around you who say, well, if you are so saved, if you were really with Jesus, you really think that these problems would take you? Yes, they can, depending on the situation. If it's not that you have allowed the enemy to come in, but God will take us through trials. God will take us through a pruning process. God will take us through all kind of testing to try our faith and to prove, more so to prove to the enemy that she's the real deal, and ultimately to bring God glory, because all of it is to glorify God. Okay? So we see here, okay, that the friends are at him. Obviously, people, I cannot go through all of it, but chapter 10 now, is it chapter 10? It says, chapter 9. Job says, although I'm blameless, I have no concern for my life. But here now, watch this progression. He says, I now despise my own life. Do you see what's happening there? So he's tried, although people saying Job never did anything. I beg to differ. And I'm going to show you something at the outset that I intentionally left out. I beg to differ. There was an eating away of Job's faith based on his circumstance. It says, I despise my own life. So there were times when he said, God, are you even going to answer? Where are you? Okay, he went through that process. Now, you don't think that's affecting his heart condition? Huh? He says, I despise. To despise is to hate. Right? Chapter 10. Verse 18. Why then did you bring me out of the womb? He's talking to God. Right? He says, hold up, let's go up to the top. This is him talking to God. Let's go slow. I'm trying to rush this, but let me not rush. Listen. Chapter 10. He says, my soul is weary of my life. Remember, we discussed that situations begin to affect when it starts touching our soul. That's where the issue is. Remember, we spoke that the spirit that is behind that, which affects the soul, and then the body. Watch this. Watch the progression. Remember, I told you about unforgiveness. He says, I will speak in the bitterness of my soul. There was a gradual erosion of his faith. He said, I will say unto God, do not condemn me. Right? But tell me what charge you have against me. God, what have I done you? Right? I mean, what? You're God. And he says, do you even have eyes of flesh? He's saying, I know you don't have eyes of flesh. You are the God who sees all things. What happened? Don't you see me suffering? But watch, it says his soul is being affected. He speaks of bitterness. He speaks of not wanting his life. Right? So Job does have a progressive issue in his spirit. And man, I forget, I was supposed to find the scripture right in Job where it speaks about how his spirit was affected. Let's see, you did bad with that one. I'll try to find it. And then he said, your hands shaped me and you made me. Will you now turn and destroy me? Remember that is you molded me. Will you turn against me? So he's like, God, he's pleading, but he's blaming. He's pleading, but he's blaming. That's the point. Obviously, I can't read all of it. No, it continues where his friends are blaming him and say, Job, shut it down, man. You're not all of that. Okay? Watch this. Chapter 19. The friends just came in 18. Bildad, the Shuhite, came and said, Job, please, you're not all of that. So Job is feeling that way from God. His friends are coming at him. Then Job replied, how long, God, will you torment me and crush me with words? 10 times now you have approached me shamelessly. No, his friend, sorry. 10 times now you have reproached me shamelessly. You attacked me. It is true that I have gone astray. It's there. It is true that I have gone astray. My error remains my concern alone. That means leave me alone. If indeed you would exalt yourself above me and ask my humiliation against God, then know that God has wronged me and drawn his net around me. So Job is just saying, just leave me alone. And then he's still, watch this, verse 11. His anger burns against me. This God he's talking about. He counts me among his enemies. Rejection. His troops advance in force. They build a siege ramp against me, so on and so forth. He's alienated me from my family, and so on and so forth. Okay? No. Let's go to what we like, which is Job 42 and verse 10. One of the things that we tend to overlook is what Job did to get this double portion. Let's pick up at verse 7. It's the last chapter. After the Lord had said these things to Job, he said to Eliphaz the Temanite, I am angry with you and your two friends, because you have not spoken the truth about me as my servant Job has. So at this point, Job has reclaimed his focus, right? So now, take 7 bulls and 7 rams. So they're supposed to offer a sacrifice, right? Let's leave that. But now he says to them, and he says to Job, my servant Job will pray for you, and I will accept his prayer and not deal with you according to your folly. The Bible says, after Job had prayed for his friends, stop for a moment. Why did Job need to really pray for his friends? Because of the instruction that we need to pray for our enemies. That's what released Job into the double portion. It wasn't that, because of what he had gone through. The Bible clearly shows us that the circumstances and the situations that Job endured, it affected him emotionally and it affected him spiritually, because it speaks about how it affected his soul. Okay, so there is some element or some evidence that there's some resentment, there's some bitterness. It spoke about bitterness that was in his heart, right? That Job had amassed as a result of this. Yes. So God said, you know what, to release this, so I can bless you, I need you to pray for them. And so I'm encouraging you that for you to enter certain things, you have to release some things, but you have to pray for these people who have despitefully used you, taken advantage of you. I was explaining to you guys that, I had some issues with unforgiveness, right? You know when that thing broke? When I prayed for the people, not, and Lord bless me, not one of those, not those. I said, God, teach me how to pray for them. And I would say, and Father, I pray that you just bless Mitzi from the crown of our head to the sole of our feet. Bless our children. Bless the land. Father, and if I knew anything, Father, I know that she wants a job coming up. Father, will you open a door for her? Will you just make your face shine upon her and be gracious? And I remember that day when I began to pray like that. I said, Holy Spirit, teach me how to pray for these people. And I was praying. Water was gushing down my face because God was releasing me from what kept me bound. Yes, as I prayed, I said, Father, just touch the children, touch the car, touch this, touch that, everything. I was on my knees praying for those people, truly praying for them. And God gave me a compassion to say, Mitzi, what if so-and-so was happening? And what if so-and-so was happening? And what if so-and-so was happening to them? I got compassion for the very people who had taken advantage of me. This is what I want to leave with you, right? I'm not finished yet. But unless you get to the place, because people say to me, Mitzi, but I have forgiven. Have you? If you can take those people and begin to pray for them, I promise you that God will release you from that bitterness, will release you from the anger, will release you from the hurt, will release you from the bond that has bound you and has affected you spiritually even until now. But one last thing before I go, as I realize I'm becoming very long-winded. We speak so much about Job. How was Satan able to even say to God, Job is not that good? Because Job had not done anything wrong necessarily, but his motives were incorrect. Let me show you. Job 1 and verse 4 and 5. Job says his sons, these are Job's sons, his sons used to hold feasts in their homes on their birthdays, and they would invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink and drunk. And when a period of feasting had run its course, Job would make arrangements for them to be purified. So early in the morning, he would sacrifice a burnt offering for each of them, thinking, perhaps my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. And this was his regular practice. So Job's motives were not correct, because although he was sacrificing to God and praying and whatever, his motive was just so God doesn't strike his children. It wasn't because he was in awe of who God is. It wasn't because he loved God so much. Well, it doesn't say that. Yes, he was fervent, but here it shows that the reason he made those sacrifices was because he didn't want his children who, by the way, who weren't doing the right thing, but he did not want them to suffer as a result. Instead of leading them in the path, he decided to do something else to appease God. And a lot of us do that, where we do certain things and we are forgetting that God is looking at our hearts. And so our motives are incorrect, but we are going in and we're doing this all kind of sacrifices. Yes, I'm going to do this fast, but the fast is just to get something. It's not to be in the presence of God. It's not to reverence God. Our motives are incorrect, and when our motives are incorrect, the devil can come to God and say, their motives are not right. Give me permission to test that, because he has to get permission, but he also has to see something that he wants to test, because he is the adversary. He is the accuser of the brethren. So I'm not saying that he's going to be correct, but he wants to accuse. He's always accusing, and he wants permission to try and to test and to prove you. Now, God will give the permission because God knows that he's already put everything inside of you and he's helping you to navigate. But that is the premise on which the devil can ask permission, because he's seeing your motives. He's seeing the way you handle certain things. While he cannot see your heart, yes, he sees that you do certain things and he knows, that has to flow out of so. This has to flow out of that, and that has to flow out of that. right? Because remember now, God is omnipresent. Satan have demons that he sent out. Okay, they're not omnipresent, so they will come and lay something here and move on to the next. Okay, but he knows that when certain things are here, right? Because the devil understand principles. Only some of us don't understand it. He understand principles. You sow this seed, you know it has to bear fruit, so you just move on to the next person. Okay, so let's pay attention to our motives, because it can give the enemy access to us. I speak a blessing over you. I pray that our God will cover you, will keep you, will guide you, will protect you, will show you what you need to see, will give you understanding of who he is, of what is happening, and he will give you the skills to navigate what it is you are enduring in this time. I pray that that spirit of religion will no longer bind you, but that you will seek God in God who is a spirit, and allow him to speak to your spirit. Pray the blessing of the Lord God Almighty cover you, keep you, guide you, and sustain you as you navigate this season of your life. Lots of love and blessing. Mwah.